The topic is monetize, and I thought it's always good to start off with a dictionary definition. So I've chosen this. I've slightly changed it for the purposes of the webinar. It's the process of turning a non-revenue generating item into cash. So really what we're exploring is all those things that are completely within what we do day to day, but we might not be monetizing it through our website or for our organization currently. So those are the things that we're trying to focus on, and I'm going to start off with, if you like, the why. What's been the impact of the last year on websites and monetization? Why is this a critical moment for our clients? A lot of our clients are talking to us about how they can monetize their content. Ben is going to explore with you what you can monetize and try and get those creative juices flowing and thinking of things that you might not already have in your mind, and we'll get a bit interactive with that. And then Yannick is going to come to the how and talking about paywalls and platforms and pay for content and how with the practical side of that. And he's going to go into some detail, but not get too technical today. So let me start with, maybe I'll try and avoid the P word or the CV word today, but what's just happened? Why is monetizing websites become important to particularly our clients, and I'm sure yourselves why you're here today? A pandemic has changed things. It's acted as a catalyst, if you like. And here's just a stat by IBM's US Retail Index that the pandemic has accelerated the shift away from physical stores to digital shopping by roughly 5 years. So that's an incredible change in just a short period of time, and we've certainly experienced that through our clients and the activities that they do. So I'm going to be sharing a few more statistics in the moment, particularly relevant to the arts and entertainment sector. But I thought before I do that, it'd be good just to have an idea of the whole e-commerce growth across the globe and what sort of impact that's had. The travel industry is one of those sectors that naturally has declined over the last year, and we obviously understand why that is. But other sectors such as fashion has increased by 27% growth on e-commerce. Food and personal care products has gone up even more by 40%. Games and hobbies and that sort of activity selling online has gone up by 25%, music downloads by 26%, and video games gone up by 23%. So you can see from there the impact that that's had, and clients and people out there are having to grapple with how to monetize their content and help them stand out from competitors, for example. So I wanted to pick out a few examples. These ones are not particularly from the arts sector where we focus our work, but I'm sure some of you have maybe tried out those restaurant meal kits. I certainly have had a few goes of those that have been really enjoyable. But on the other extreme, I found an example of an animal sanctuary in California who are selling bringing their goats into your Zoom meeting, so you can pay to have that sort of animal experience that sort of change the sort of the tone and the atmosphere of a Zoom meeting with a donation to their sanctuary. And I'm going to share with you someone from my network. We don't work with Jo, but Jo Wivel runs a Spanish travel she's a Spanish travel specialist, and she's going to talk about how she reacted, how she responded to the pandemic, and what she's done to generate revenue through her website. And then I'm going to just pick up on a couple of our own clients. So we work with London Craft Week, and they would have had a summer exhibition, London Craft Week in the summer last year. They had to move that. They moved it to the autumn. They still didn't know whether it happened online. We helped them not only sell their products, not only put an exhibition online as a fallback in case the physical exhibition didn't happen. We then helped them to sell, to be able to sell all their wonderful high-end craft pieces through their website. In fact, when people went to the physical exhibition, which was on Regent Street and did happen in September, I think, people had to actually not buy it in person like they would normally do in the summer exhibition, but actually buy it through the website. We've worked with countless festivals over this period and helping them to get their content online. Dance Umbrella is one of them. They were able to sell workshops and events and content through their website, using things like Eventbrite and Zoom as well to sort of all come together. And then I'm going to give you an example of another client, Theatre Cafe, who I've been really impressed with how quickly they were able to respond to last year's events. And to sort of give a break from me talking, I've actually interviewed them last week, and I've got a few minutes of that interview edited together very roughly by me. I'm not an expert here. And I'm going to play that for you now. So this is Joe, who's a Spanish travel specialist, and Susanna from Theatre Cafe, and their experience over the last few months.
My name's Jo Wivell. I am now based in the UK, having lived in Madrid for 19 years. I have a tour company, Insiders Travel, which is all about taking you to the heart of Spain. So when you go to Spain, you feel immersed in its culture by the people you meet and the food that you eat and the wines that you drink and the countryside you walk through and the city pavements you walk along. Just before lockdown, we had various tours booked in groups coming through Spain. People, the murmurs of, do you think this is okay? Actually, we're just going to cancel. And then, of course, as we know, the whole reality turned on its face. Then realizing that actually in the travel business, we would have to keep visibility with our clients, just as with every business. So how are we going to do that? And the idea was to really get connected with the clients. So our tours are all about meeting people, getting immersed in Spain when you travel through Spain. Well, let's all do this over Zoom. So we started with our tasting and tapas Spanish Saturdays. It was quite a tiring process because we were doing a new one each week and it sort of took over our lives. But it was great. It was outside of my comfort zone to start with. But then I realized it's just like being on a tour, and what great marketing and what better way to convey what a tour could be like than to have us all in one room, tasting some wine, understanding what the landscape's like for it to taste this way. Let's make a tapa together. You're meeting Raul Orantes, our wine guy, and just having a bit of a laugh and learning things. But done everything on Zoom. We have, yes, charged for them. Obviously, at the beginning, you want people to come along. You also want to get a feel for how it can work. So, first few sessions, you'll invite people along. We've started using Eventbrite, and that is linked to, either PayPal, although we have to have problems with PayPal, particularly from the States. Sometimes people have got blocked with that. So, we're, where possible, configuring it so that people can just make a straight card payment. But Eventbrite's been good in that we have received, most of it's been through word of mouth, but we have received then the odd client that's come through Eventbrite's advertising.
Susanna, can you tell us a little bit about how Theatre Cafe monetized their website and through as a result of the pandemic?
So when the pandemic hit, obviously we were first affected as a ticket seller and as an advertiser, and then later as a cafe as well, not being able to do anything that we'd normally be able to do. We thought, how can we reach audiences at home? How can we get to them? How can we bring their favourite performers to them? So the Theatre Cafe and Lambert Jackson Productions teamed up and created Leave a Light On. So Leave a Light On was filmed from performers' homes, occasionally, I think, COVID securely from the cafe stage itself, and you were able to purchase them for £5 only through the Theatre Cafe website. And these were concerts where your favourite stars would perform songs from the history of their West End appearances, upcoming music that they might be releasing, or just covers of songs that they love, plus, you know, combined with chats and kind of that, you know, I'm reaching you from your home. And you know, it provided not only audiences with the chance to stay engaged with the West End, but it also provided artists with the opportunity to keep earning money. Additionally, with the people that filmed it inside the cafe, that did the advertising, you know, us and Lambert Jackson Productions, we all, you know, gained something from that. But most importantly, we wanted to be supporting the artists that have been put out of work due to the pandemic. We do a lot of signage, so we do a lot of like in-person signage in all of our shops and all of this and all of that. And I was like, well, you know, really we should be putting that on the website as well, because, you know, that reaches people that whose budget maybe isn't as big as, you know, Joseph at the Palladium, and, you know, who maybe need that little extra push and stuff. So we thought about, don't include that, but it wasn't it, about including ads on site. So, you know, the traditional Google ads, billboards, leaderboards, HPUs, MPUs, all of that. Just try and showcase, give shows an opportunity to feature on our site. And also, you know, it makes our site look better. Like when they're up, it will make our site look even better, because, you know, we're current, we're there, we're supporting people. And it just gives us and shows another avenue to...
What impressed me, I think, with Theatre Cafe, I mean, you're always a team with ideas, and when you've got the ideas, you want to move fast. And I was impressed with how quickly you got that set up, and we obviously had to help you with the website, but I remember
Absolutely.
phoning us, or Ryan phoning us pretty quickly when you think that other organisations are still trying to work out how to serve their content on.
Yeah. It was, you know, it was very immediate. It was kind of light bulb moment. Let's do this thing. Let's team up together and let's just get it done.
Great. So,
Yeah,
so I hope that gives just a flavour of the things that we'll explore a little bit more with Ben in a few moments. Interesting stats that Culture Restart have shared. I don't know if people like, or any of you have already come across this. It's Insights Alliance, Indigo, Baker Richards, one further, have been gathering information from audiences, particularly arts organisations, where surveys were sent out through the arts organisations themselves, presumably to ticket buyers, to mailing list people, and been asking a series of questions about attitude to coming back after the pandemic, and to experiencing content online. And it's that experience that I picked up on here, with a few of their stats that I thought were really interesting and relevant to today's webinar. So what their research found was that the things that people are more likely to pay for are things like live events, performances, interactive events, and workshops. And the things that people are less likely, that's not to say they wouldn't pay for them, are things like archive recordings, talks, and bonus content. So there's something there about thinking about, if you are going to put content online and start charging for it, to think about you know, the easy wins and things that are going to likely get better responses. Now, this one I find useful because I've had we've all had lots of conversations with our clients about who are maybe resistant to putting content online, or charging for it rather, and they may have very good reasons. It might be because they feel that they're funded to access audiences that wouldn't normally go to the arts, so making it freely available has been important to them. But what the research shows is if you serve content that's free, people are less likely to expect to want to pay for it or donate for something in the future. And I haven't got the stat here, but the reverse is definitely true. If you start charging for it, it's natural that people expect to pay for it in the longer run. 64% expect to pay for digital content, in fact, and nearly half will pay up to 50% of the live cost. So whatever the cost for the live ticket is, people would imagine are paying up to half of that. And in fact, a sweet spot was between the £10 and £20 range. And I think that probably comes from people's association with cinema tickets and how they sort of equate the value there. 76% have paid in some way, including a donation or pay what you can contribution. And another thing that they sort of went in and explored that I found was really interesting is that what you suggest people to donate really affects what they do donate. So if you only ask for £5, people tended to donate whatever they donated, very little. If you ask people to donate, say, a higher figure, say £100, then maybe people don't donate that much, but the overall average amount of donation goes up. So I thought that was really interesting. how long you give access to that content has an effect on how many people take it up. And again, not surprisingly, the longer you give access to people, the more receptive they are to it. And we certainly found that with Spitalfields Music, when they had a one-day event that we helped them stream, partly recorded and live bits in a strange kind of way, but they gave people access for a whole 30 days, and that really helped with the technical issues that some of the audiences who weren't familiar with their website or their setup had on the day. And it was really reassuring for people to know that just because it hadn't quite worked for them that day, that they could come back to it at another time and see the recordings. 23% expect to pay for online events even after the return to in-person performances. And I think that's really interesting. That really tells us that any investment that we're making in monetizing our content at this stage is an investment in the future, because I think I think we can see that it's going to be here for and a lot of the changes that are coming around because of the events of last year are going to be around for much longer. And then I picked one last stat out of the research that I liked. And this is about people who expressed an interest in paying monthly subscriptions to online events. And although 15% sounds like a small proportion of people, if you think that it's maybe 15% of your loyal audience, and actually those sorts of people can be maybe multiplied when you have access to it globally, so you can get audiences away from, further afield than your local audience. That 15% could actually be quite a significant impact on your annual revenue. So I thought that was worth sharing as well. So I wanted to give you some examples of why now is important to think about monetization. Ben, can you explore with people what's the sort of things that you might want to monetize?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Hans. I'm just going to start sharing my screen as well. So yeah, we've covered sort of why it's important to monetize your website, and that we've just seen some stats and figures about the trends in that area. So we're going to basically just break this up into two sections. There's lots of different options, so I thought it was easier to tackle it in two main points. The first one is what content you're going to charge for, and the second one is how you're going to charge for it, so what payment model you're going to be pursuing. And that kind of is a bit of a mishmash of different things, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. So for the first point, what can you charge for? I'm going to give you a list of things that some of our clients are or are currently monetizing. And as you can see, the list is quite extensive. So a lot of people have been turning to podcasts. That's been very popular, either hosted on the website or through a third party. Same thing with a video. One of the more interesting things that we've had recently is Chinese Arts Now had a 3D exhibition, which was an immersive world that a developer had created, and they monetized access to that initially. You've got Q&As. There's a company called the Monobox that I know who support actors, and they've been charging for Q&As with people like or just Olivia award-winning actors and producers and directors, so that they can, people can pick brains and have coffee mornings with them. And that's a really sort of inventive way that, getting those sorts of people in one room is often quite difficult. So now that the access is global, that's one option. And really the main takeaway here is that you can pretty much monetize anything, including, and I hope we kind of already touched on this, the website itself. So what I mean by that is Google Ads. So as we heard from Theatre Cafe, they're turning towards advertising on their actual website. And this is an option that could be sort of potentially overlooked. Essentially, Google have two main ways of providing adverts on your site. Either you can use Google AdSense, which basically pushes the top bidding advert in a space. So you have a space on your site that you offer people to advertise in, people bid for that space, and the highest bid wins. Or you can use Google Ad Manager, which is where you have the same space, but you personally go and invite people to advertise in that space. And that gives you a bit more control, and you can charge per click of advert. There is a bit of crossover between the two platforms. And there is, a lot you can do with it. I'm actually just going to share in the chat this revenue calculator. I can't seem to find my chat, which is a really interesting.
Yeah, I've done it.
Hans, if you could do that, thank you very much. Yes, so this is basically a revenue calculator that will estimate the amount of money you can expect to earn based on the amount of clicks or hits to your site. So it's just quite a nice, fun tool to see what money there is to be made. And it's a huge topic all in itself, but it is something that a few of our clients are starting to utilize. And so I thought we'd just touch on it today. The next bit is to talk about, we've talked about the content and what we can charge for. So how can we charge for it? And again, there's pretty much limitless number of options, but these are the 4 key ones that are most common. So you've got paywalls, ticketing, paying per view or per item content, and then tiered access. And Yannick's going to touch more on detail of how these work and how they can be implemented. But I just wanted to sort of bring this up and mention that this is kind of where your creative content, your engagement with your audience and your business strategy kind of come together, because how you choose to monetize the content really can reflect on the sort of brand identity and feel of your business. So for example, if you charge different amounts for different levels of access to your site, that could be interpreted as sort of exclusive and really exciting for some people, but it could perhaps come across as maybe sort of elitist or off-putting for others, especially if there's huge differences in the amount of money per tier. So for example, if it jumped from 20 to £100, you'd expect an awful lot for your money in the £100 bracket. So just to summarize, that was the content that you're providing, your audience, and then the strategy that you're going to be pursuing with that. And we're nearly at the end of this section, but I just wanted to touch on how you can maximize your content. So you've got your content, you're nearly there with a strategy. And once you've done it once, how can you make that earn money for you again? So again, there's lots of different avenues that people have pursued. I think Hans is going to share a few other links and of examples in the chat. Some notable ones that I've noticed over the last year or so has been BBC Proms, and most of that was free through BBC, but they use a lot of their legacy and archive content to rebroadcast it. The National Theatre have started doing a subscription service to their National Theatre at Home programme. The Royal Court Theatre and the Almeida Theatre are both using sort of subscription models and limiting audience numbers. So again, this is very much up to sort of your imagination and how you think it's going to best fit your audience. But there are options that I'd encourage you to pursue when you've already done it once. How can you do it again and maximize the content? Final 2 options, which are perhaps a bit more unusual, but also very interesting and perhaps more eye-catching, is partnering with other organizations so that you are offering an experience collaboratively. And I think Theatre Cafe mentioned that they were partnering with somebody else to offer their content and film it. You could offer, perhaps a cocktail or a meal from a local restaurant if you're a more local business, so that you can enjoy the show at home with the cocktail and meal. The other one is affiliate content, which is where you promote other people's events or content. And then you can take a commission fee for doing so, and that can work both ways, so that maybe you do an exchange of favors. So yeah, those are just very briefly touched on a huge range of options. I realize there's quite a lot to take in, but I just encourage you to have a think about what the best content is for your business, who you're trying to get it to, and then how best to engage with those customers or consumers. And now I'm going to pass over to Yannick to talk about how to practically implement some of those options into your site. I'm going to stop the screen. There we go.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Can everyone see my screen that I'm sharing, and it says how to monetize? Great, cool. So welcome everyone. So you've established that you want to monetize something. You've established what you want to monetize. So now I'm going to go into how to monetize the website. I won't go too far into installation and development and how to get into the setup of it. so that we can speak a bit more about the solutions themselves and their advantages and disadvantages. In general, each one have got a unique setup in the way they go. So I want to start with the classic, very easy, very base level, a shop e-commerce solution. So what I mean by that is how on your website you can make it so that you can put a product, you can buy that, you can put that product in a basket, and then you can pay for that product. So just at a very base level, a shop e-commerce solution. And I wanted to throw out, if you put into the chat now, I need to make sure I can see the chat actually. Just the types of, maybe someone can read it out for me. I don't know why but the types of e-commerce solutions you've been using. Susanna mentioned one recently in the YouTube video that Hans said Eventbrite, but if anybody's got any that they've been using recently, I'll be going through some of the main ones, but
it's a quiet group. Yannick, no responses coming through from anyone. Any other obvious things?
No problem. We'll keep going, and then if you do have some that come up, just we can whack them in the chat as they go. But here's some of the main ones. So white label. So white label is a category. So basically, it's where someone else hosts the shop. So they'll host the shop, and then they'll normally give you somewhere where they can put the logo. You can change sometimes the colors and things like this. Basically, it's like if you don't have the means to make like a bottle of water or a bag, sometimes what will happen is that you can go to somewhere that will make it for you, and then they'll put it on their website, and then you'll just have your own section for the website. Another one we've got is Shopify. Shopify is an e-commerce solution that transforms your website into this place where you can put products, you can put them in a basket and pay for them. The same with WooCommerce. And I do want to highlight as well, there are some custom plugins as well, where you don't need to have the full shop experience. So for instance, monetizing a form. So to get this download or to get this PDF, fill in this form, pay, and then you can get the form. So it's kind of a little bit more detailed and things like that. But to go into them a little bit more, so white label, I can see a couple of things in the chat, and I actually found where the chat is. It's here. Great. Okay. So white label, as I said, it's good for merchandise. So with, say, for instance, you can't make hats on site, but you've got a local vendor that will make hats for you and brand them for you. And then they will host it on their website for you. So you don't need to worry about stock or handling that stock. They can do it and they can put it on the website. And what we've done with that is sometimes what we've done is we've recreated what it needs to look like on the website and then just linked off to that specific page where they can buy. But inevitably, the person has to leave your site. It's also good for vouchers. So again, something that you can hold so they can arrive with the voucher. Say they bought a tea and a coffee in the cafe, and they can come along with this and then they've got it. And the other one I was just going to say is ticketing. So Eventbrite is a form of white label because you're going off to the website, you're getting the ticket, and then you come back to the website. So that's a white label. So Shopify is an e-commerce solution. And basically, it can be used in two ways. So the first way is that you integrate the solution into your website. You make a place where you can you can add the product, you can buy that product, put it into your cart, and then pay for it. So you can do that, and you can customize where it goes on the website. Or you can build on Spotify.com/your website, the shop, and then you use their theme and you link off to it in the same way as a white label. So just to populate some of these good things that they've got. So they've got Shopify themes. So if you are doing the white label, you can kind of customize a little bit what it looks like. You can do vouchers. You've got one-off products and memberships. An interesting thing about Shopify is it's a large-scale shop solution. That means that it's set up so that you can go to the millions with people. I mean, so you can send international, have a huge shop solution. The reason is that they've got their own servers that they handle all the payment gateways, so you don't need to worry about any in terms of bottlenecking or server issues, because that's what it's set up for. It's set up to scale very far. The interesting thing is it's written in a programming language called Liquid. And as a programmer, it's interesting because Liquid is only used for Shopify. And that means if you want to do a custom Shopify solution, you have to use Shopify's language, which means that there's less developers out there that can work in that language. It might make more sense when I come to WooCommerce. But basically, you have to use their solution, which is interesting. It's based on lots of architectural, in terms of programming, good architecture. But when you make it more specific, it's sometimes harder to find a developer for who would be able to do that. I'm just going to check the chat to see.
I'll keep an eye on the chat, Yannick. You're fine.
Okay. So that's kind of an overview of Shopify. So WooCommerce. So WooCommerce, again, it's a place where you can put a product onto the page. You can put that product into your basket and you can pay for that product. So basically it's a plugin that creates an e-commerce solution into your website. So I'll just populate some of these. So I've highlighted that it's got WordPress theme integration. It's particularly good at integrating into WordPress, but it does integrate into many other CMSs as well. So it's got that wide range. Again, it's got one-off products, memberships, subscriptions. So it's written in PHP, which in programming, the biggest language on the web is JavaScript, and probably the next one after that is PHP. It's just a huge powerhouse of a programming language. And basically there's a lot of people that can write PHP code, which means if you need to do a customization on WooCommerce, you can find either a WooCommerce developer or a PHP developer. The WooCommerce person will obviously know a little bit more about WooCommerce, but PHP will be able to read the code. So basically it means there's a lot more solutions that have been done. And once you see it done once, you can recreate it. And there's sometimes a bit more creativity in that kind of community of developers. So just to bring them up side by side, I'll just populate these. Yes. So we've got WooCommerce, which is written in PHP. It's widely used. Shopify, written in Liquid, which is only for them. So it's a bit easier sometimes to find someone who can do customization on WooCommerce, which sometimes makes it cheaper for development, where Shopify uses their own language, which means that you can sometimes pull it away from the website in order to create that whole shop, which means that then you can use the Shopify scaling to be able to say, if you're a shirt company selling internationally, you'll be able to lean on the servers, and you can be confident that they're gonna scale into that millions kind of area. WooCommerce is free. Shopify has monthly subscription. They also have some monetization in that sometimes they'll take, I don't know what the figure is, but they'll take a percentage of some products when you sell them. Both, you can extend the functionality on both of them. I'll get into that a little bit more after this, but you can extend it for ticketing with plugins, and on Shopify they call it apps. WooCommerce, you've got updates happening very easily. Shopify also updates, but if you have to pull it away from the website, sometimes you need a Shopify developer to be able to update the custom code. So it might mean that you need to have an ongoing relationship with the developer to make sure it keeps going. It keeps up to date, if that makes sense. We've got both can integrate into WordPress or any other CMS control. And then coming onto the server thing, Shopify, it's on their own servers. WooCommerce hosts it on your server. And what that means is that you can you can be a bit more elastic with WooCommerce, with your server. Maybe you don't need a huge server space. Maybe you just need a smaller server space. And then when there's an event or a performance coming up, you need to boost the server. This is something that we do quite often here, which means that on the one case, it can make it cheaper sometimes for hosting because you don't need to have this huge scalability, although Shopify do take that into account. But the other part is that because you have a smaller server, it takes less energy to power that server, which means that your carbon footprint could be lower. So depending on how far that's of interest, it's just the two differences between them. Both are great. Both can do the shopping solution. Just it's taking into account the advantages and disadvantages between them.
Yannick.
Yep, sorry, Hans, I saw you take a breath.
Yeah, just picking up on one of your analogies to another client the other day, it reminds me of that. And to me, it feels like Shopify is, as you described it in a different context, is almost like Apple, and WooCommerce is a little bit more Microsoft, would you say? Is that?
Yeah, it's a great... So yeah, in the Apple is great. It does everything you need, and it's just one button. You click the button, and it works. But if you needed to do something else, you have to go to Apple, and they'll tell you whether or not it's possible. And if it's not possible, there's no way it's going to be possible. Whereas with Windows, you can take out the parts of it. You can put a new RAM in. You can do this. You can change that. So it's got that kind of like you've got access to the wires. So I like that analogy. That Shopify is sometimes a bit more like Apple, in that it's really good. But then if you need to do anything different, it can be a bit difficult to actually change that, and you have to get very specific with what you need to change. Whereas WooCommerce, because there's so many people, it's open source and you can get in, it's written in PHP. It means you can limit sometimes is your imagination and how easy it's going to be to keep maintaining it. So how far you keep it updatable, if that makes sense. So I want to come on to, that was creating a shop solution. So now if you want to put content on your website and then charge for it, we call this a paywall. So paywall is basically just an interrupt to content. So if you've got a video on your website, to view this video, you have to have this ticket. So it's good for restricting content, one-off purchases, and basically it can be done with both WooCommerce and Shopify. We've done it in many ways where we've done it with memberships. In order to see this video, you need to be a member, and then you get access to a member login. Or we've done it like the example with Spitalfields, where it was for a ticketing solution. So in order to view this event day, you have to have this ticket. And we did that through a third party, but it can also be done through WooCommerce and Shopify, because we've done that on Theatre Cafe as well. So basically just to highlight that we can do that. When you've decided what you want to monetize, creating the paywall is a choice of choosing between these solutions, and then it can be done is the main takeaway. So I do want to come on to ticketing though, because sometimes it's easier. You don't need this basket solution sometimes. Actually, it's probably the best example is that for ticketing, sometimes you need more stuff. So for instance, you need like a seating plan, or you need season tickets or something like this. So sometimes it's easier to just use someone else's solution and piggyback off of that rather than trying to create it in your own shop. So I'll just go through a few of these. So we've got Eventbrite is one ticketing solution, but we've also got Spectrix and TicketSolve. And what they offer is this kind of like creating a performance and a box office feel, so that you can then print the tickets, and then you've got access to the tickets, access to sending emails. But I do want to highlight it can also be done through WooCommerce and Shopify. The reason that we sometimes use different ones is sometimes we don't need all the features that WooCommerce and Shopify give, but we do, and it's already handled in the third party. So instead of rebuilding it, we just use that. The other thing is that it also gives a login separate to the website. So sometimes you don't want the box office to have access to the website for whatever reason, but you do need them to have control over ticketing and pricing and things like this. So you give them the login to the ticket place, and then it automatically inserts into the website. So, oh yeah, go on, Hans.
No, I was going to pick up. Sally has a question in the chat box about how she would love to sell tickets for a tour through her website, and is that possible? And of course, yes, is the answer. It is possible, and there's loads of different ways of doing that. And what you've suggested are just a few of them, but there are also platforms where where if she wants to sell it through her website, where she just pays a percentage of the ticket sale is given to the ticket buyer, and there are expensive solutions and there are cheaper solutions. I can think, for example, Dance Umbrella were using, I can't remember the name of it. Is it brown paper tickets? I don't know if someone can correct me there. But there are other solutions like that are very easy for a tour like, a dance tour to include in their website.
I've also seen where theatres will, so you go on tour and you go to certain theatres and then they sell the tickets through their system and you just link to their system. And it kind of gives that kind of you still locally support that theatre, but you're still buying tickets to the performance.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically, there's a lot of different ways that it can be done, and there's advantages and disadvantages. For instance, updates, pricing is another one, features. So when it comes to it, it's kind of understanding what you need to be able to do, and then matching that with the research of what solutions are out there to see what's going to fit best. For instance, if you need data reporting, some of them are better at data reporting, some of them are not as good at data reporting. So it's kind of the section is to give an overview of the ticketing or the solutions that are out there, so that then you can try and map it to your goals and how it goes. So that's kind of how for now. And I'll hand you back to Hans to go through. We can keep going with the questions, but if you do have more questions on this, keep firing into the chat, and if we don't answer them now, we'll be able to answer them in the blog post.
Thank you. Yes. So thank you for that, Yannick and Ben as well. So we've got a few minutes left for questions. So we've been helping Sally with her questions, but while give you a couple of seconds to think of any other questions that you might want to put in the chat box. While we do that, just to remind you of upcoming webinars. So we've got these 3 already available to reserve spaces for on the website, and we've got all the details on the website. So I think, Ben, you're going to share the link to where people can find out more about those webinars. In the meantime, Phoebe is putting together a plan of webinars for the rest of the year. So please, if you've got suggestions, if there are things you want us to talk about, put those in the chat box as well, and we'll factor that in while Phoebe's putting those plans together. Also, if you want to hear about future webinars and updates from HdK, we've got a newsletter, and I think if you share that link. So if we now go back to questions, I think Sally has one question that we haven't been able to answer, and it's a tough one, I think, Sally, in a funny sort of way. It's what sells. I think you say what sells well, and you've clearly stated that you're not going to sell Sweet Shop Revolution baseball caps on your website, quite understandably. Drugs? No, I don't. I think that's illegal. But anyone got any suggestions of what sells well? Because I suspect it's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be. I can understand why when you had a dance tour website, there were things there that you put on sale that didn't sell well, because I imagine that's not what people thought about when they came to your website. And also, I think that it's important to have a marketing plan around what you're selling as well, and that's another topic as well. So I think that's a tricky one.
I think recurring. I don't know how to put it. So you buy it once and you have access to it for the weekend. I've noticed that sells well. The reason being that if you miss it on the day, you can watch it another time, or you can watch it at your own time.
Yeah, it's flexibility of content. That's another thing that some theatres are doing, where they give access for 48 hours, and then you've got any time to watch it over and over again within those 48 hours. I noticed that a lot of these analogies are video content, but this really can apply to anything else that you're monetizing as well. I also just wanted to say that for ticketing, some of our clients at the moment are doing booking solutions, which is more class-based and sort of events, rather than performances. And there is a difference between them, but that is also something that we are beginning to do a lot more of. And yeah, so just wanted to mention that there is a slight difference between those two platforms.
Yeah, I think that's been interesting, the increase in, and again, not surprising for particularly a lot of our clients who can't perform but are using their artists. Great example of them using the artists who maybe are still contracted to work with them to run workshops over this period, but then this is making them think about even going back to normality, whether they will still continue doing those. So we've been certainly having a lot of conversations about workshops and classes online, or selling those online. I think Chloe has a question, if we've still got another couple of minutes.
Yeah, it was just a quick one. So
Yeah.
you might have heard about the rumblings about the iOS 14 update across Apple, and how they're going to absolutely put the kibosh on any sort of marketing tracking in pixels. Is there a particular platform that you would recommend? So you obviously talked about Shopify and things like that. Is there one that you would say would be most useful in these coming dark days? Or
for what? Sorry, just explain the question again. For in a time when we can't track people, user journeys, and
are there any kind of rumblings? I guess it's more of a broad generic question. Are there any sort of rumblings coming from those companies who are kind of saying, we're aware of this change, here's what we're planning to put in place to combat it? Or is there anyone that you would think, yeah, they're on the ball?
I haven't seen that yet. I mean, I've heard what you've heard as well at this stage, but not seen their reactions to how they're going to get around that. I guess it's still early days, but it's something to definitely something we should look out for.
There's been a go on, Ben.
Go on.
There's also been an update at the beginning of the year to Instagram, Facebook, and that's been an interesting one as well, trying to track through those pixels. I think a lot of stuff, basically they're still communicating to developers exactly what they've done, and they're still working it out. So with it, in terms of tracking, I think it's normally a good idea to lean into the big like Google and things like this to begin with, because they'll be the ones working on the solution quickest. But in particular, Apple has always got their own way of doing things, and hopefully they'll be releasing a little bit more in terms of what they're what exactly they've done, and what exactly how they want to provide the way to track. Does that answer your question, Chloe?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we also have kind of weekly meetings with a professional at Facebook, and even they don't really know when the changes are being properly rolled out. So I was hoping that there was going to be like rumblings in the website sector. But I appreciate it's very early days.
I think I'd take courage in the fact that, I think for all of these updates, there will always be someone or some huge company that's going to, make sure that you can still do the things that you can. I think it's just a bit of an ongoing war between the tech giants. So I think just give it time. There will probably be a solution. It might not be a perfect solution, but there'll probably be a solution in the works. But unfortunately, we don't have the resources for that solution yet until they're available.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chloe, for that question. Thank you, Sally, as well. And I think that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.